Today, we commemorate and celebrate a life that has passed quickly and ended far too soon. Andrew John Billett, or Andy as he's referred to here, was the middle of three brothers, all born 2 years apart. Martin first in 1949, Andy second in 1951, and me, Stephen, third in 1953. We grew up and were parented lovingly by Peggy and Arthur Billett in Ormskirk, not far from where this ceremony is being conducted today. We all three went to the same primary school, Greetby Hill, and then from there on to Wigan Road Secondary Modern School. We enjoyed our annual family holidays in Cornwall and weekend trips away in our father's car, visiting stately homes, ancient sites, and occasional sporting events. Andy was the most successful at school and the better looking of the three of us. For his younger brother, he was the cool one. He had cool friends, some of whom roamed and maintained Lambretta scooters, Jeff Privitch, for instance. Once he gifted me a pair of oversized brown suede Chelsea boots with Cuban heels. I've no idea where he got them from, but I used to clump around the house wearing them, despite them being far too large, mistakenly believing that they made me look cool. Andy was also the brother who at school managed to avoid competing in the annual cross-country run that was mandatory and entailed the entire Wigan Road school body of students trekking around the oval and then doing a circuit of rough wood before returning back to the school. However, somehow Andy avoided this indignity and participated as an observer, smiling nonchalantly as we ran past the start and the finishing line. How did he manage that? I never asked him, and now never will be able to. Once his coolness got me into trouble. The Sunday roast dinner at lunchtime was always a key family event that we were expected to attend, even as we began to socialize outside of family. I vividly recall Andy arriving home one Sunday morning just before lunchtime after being out all night. Sitting around the table with my mother, God bless her, she referred to a hickey on Andy's neck, asking him what it was. Without the slightest hesitation or change of expression, he replied, "Rope burn." This caused me to spray a mouthful of cauliflower across the table and was reprimanded for behaving in such an inexplicable way and sent to my room by my parents, who seemed totally unaware of what it was. Andy observed these proceedings just with a slight raising of an eyebrow. In the years after school, our diverse life journeys took the brothers away from Ormskirk and to a degree from each other. Martin pursued a career in hospitality, taking him first to Liverpool to study and then to different parts of Britain, including North and South Wales. Andy joined the Merchant Marine, working for Harrison Line out of Liverpool, and sailed to the Caribbean and parts of Africa, as I recall. From these trips, he brought back gifts, including a large and highly decorative sombrero, cigarettes that were of a different kind sold into Britain, and LPs that you'd never find in a record shop in the UK. He then worked in Liverpool and Southport and places not too far from Ormskirk. I did college in Manchester, then worked there, Wigan, London, before travelling to and ending up living in Australia. So beyond these early years, we lived quite separate lives, not out of any antipathy, but separated by circumstance. Andy met Kath through a friend of her flatmate, Anne, who knew some of Andy's mates. Not one to be overly demonstrative, he surprised my mum and dad one day in 1975 by asking them if they had any plans for the 24th of May, which was coming up very shortly. The way my mother told the story was that when she asked him why, he simply replied, "Because I'm getting married," and then proceeded up to his bedroom. As the years and decades rolled on, we had our different lives, and there are many aspects of Andy's life that I do not know. So, who was Andy? It seems that Andy let the world ride in his eyes, so to speak. He was an observer who, rather than plunging in, engaged circumspectly, and then only for and with those who meant the most to him. He once described somebody in his neighborhood who did the opposite as being action man. But he admired achievement in its own terms. He referred to his old classmate, Jeff Cheetham, who had become successful by setting up his own business, firstly by running a market stall in Ormskirk, and then going on to build up his business. So he admired also footballers, rugby players, and cricketers because of their personal talents and abilities. So the qualities I described as being cool as a young man manifested itself with him engaging in the world in a personally conditional, calm, and respectful way. As a North Country man, unsurprisingly, he was skeptical of hubris and posers. Doubtless also, Andy could have had a very different work-life career. But he made choices on what he wanted to do and those that met his sense of what was right for him. Perhaps most importantly, he was deeply involved and admired by his family and close friends, and this is where his personal qualities were exercised. Kathy states that he really liked people and they really liked him in return. She jokes about how Andy's calmness counterpointed her own sometimes more animated and excitable demeanor. "Calm down, Kath. Calm down, Kath," was one of his refrains, Andy says. Sarah refers to having a dad who was a great friend, perhaps her best, and who would always engage non-judgmentally. David had a dad who also engaged with him as a friend and in a non-judgmental and supportive way. So his two children greatly admired his warmth, engagement, unconditional and non-judgmental qualities. Certainly, he didn't like to be the center of attention, projecting himself and seeking and demanding acknowledgement. Quite the opposite. When he became unwell, he would quickly shift our phone conversation from being about him onto others. Having provided the briefest update of his health, he would quickly divert the conversation to, "Yes," he would say, but how are you going? Kathy witnessed firsthand how well he dealt with the indignities, discomforts, and trials of ill health and treatments as a patient in a calm, resilient, and uncomplaining way. Others have commented that they could have not been so circumspect and well behaved in such circumstances. So he didn't like to be the center of attention and demand attention. Indeed, Andy would probably be uncomfortable with how he's being described here and want the conversation to shift onto others. But today, he doesn't have that choice. So what can we learn from and finally say about Andy? In an era dominated by ubiquitous social media influencers and commentators, Andy cuts a different figure. That is somebody who exercised himself quietly, calmly, and non-judgmentally with those whom he knew and loved. He always spoke warmly and lovingly about Georgia and Tommy and of Sarah's care for them. They are great kids, and Sarah as being just a great parent, is what he said. This was a father and grandfather's unreserved affection and love, not boastful hyperbole. So we've lost a loving husband, father, grandfather, all too soon. So farewell, Andy. You lived your life, made contributions where they mattered to you, and found fulfillment in doing so. You go on your journey now, knowing that those who meant the most to you think the most of you.